Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Mormonism After Dark. I'm Radio Free Mormon. This is my co-host, Bill Reel. How are you doing, Bill?
I'm doing excellent, RFM. How's life treating you?
Great. I wanted to explain to the audience, we're about 2-3 minutes late getting started. I thought, Bill was keeping track of that, and I looked over at him and I said, hey, by the way, we're after time. And he goes, oh, yeah. And I said, time's slowing down for you right now, isn't it, Bill?
No time to play around. No games to be played. So, how's your week? Was it a good week?
It was a great week. It was a week indeed. And a lot of great things are happening. By the way, I got to tell you, I look at you, you're sitting there, you're looking lovely as usual, but you're in front of that blind. Now that's a white blind, but still it reminds me of the red blind back where you were podcasting from the pawn store, right?
It's a similar look to that. I had the red gate. People thought it looked like a Chick-fil-A window or something where the folks were going to get past their sandwich, Here you are, and pass the bag across the window. But no, it had a drive-through to the pawn shop with a security gate, and the gate was red in color. So super cool.
Yes, wonderful. Well, I will tell you that this morning I came into the studio and recorded after prepping for during the week. Something wonderful happened this past week, by the way. And what happened completely unexpected by me was that it involves Jen Camp, by the way. I thought that was over. I thought it was done. I thought it was fini, kaput. But no, because what a shock. Somebody that I have no idea who they are, but they have a little channel on YouTube. And this past week, they put up a brief video. All right. Now, having said that, the video itself is recording a phone call that is being made to these people. It's a husband and wife, so that one has the phone and to play it, and the other one has the phone to record it, right? And it's Jen Camp who is calling on the phone to try and dig up some dirt on John DeLynn. And they record the whole thing. This thing got released this past week, but it was recorded back in the 4th of July weekend of last year, 2024. So it's really, really interesting. There's more to recommend it. I go through it. And the best thing of all, 30 minutes long.
Yeah, it's a short podcast, but you tackle this this phone call, which I'll just say is awkward to say the least. In the incongruities that are there in that phone call, you go over in depth, and I think it makes for a great conversation. I've only just begun it, so.
Right. This is something that I think there was some talk about. People heard about it or heard it from somebody else that she had been calling in order to try and find dirt on John DeLynn. But now we have the goods. We have the receipts, and we'll be playing it tomorrow night, 8:00 p.m. Mountain Time, Radio Free Mormon. We put a little bit later, and but only half an hour, right? So it's not going to go for 4 hours or anything like that.
Yeah. So tune in for Radio Free Mormon's episode of that. What else what else are you thinking? What else is? Please. No, please.
And normally I wouldn't go into that kind of detail.
Yeah.
But I think that part of the vibe that I want to create here at Mormonism After Dark, and Bill and I have talked about this, is that this is a place where if you come here, sometimes you'll get some juicy stuff, more stuff than you would get normally in advance, maybe some behind the scenes kind of information that we wouldn't normally talk about, because we're on other podcasts, we're typically worried about the final product and how the final product looks, and making it so that you don't see all the stuff that went on behind the scenes to produce it, right? But here, I feel like we can relax a little bit, even though it's in a tuxedo, but relax a little bit and talk about those interesting things that happen from time to time behind the scenes while we're producing the podcast.
Yeah, I'll tell you, listening to the two of them having the conversation, the husband and wife who are having it with Jen.
I'm sorry, the what?
The conversation that
you say the husband and the wife who are having it with Jen?
Yeah, for this episode, there's the video that you use, which is the
conversation with Jen.
That's what I said.
Okay, yeah.
A conversation with Jen, yeah. And that conversation it's awkward, and it's awkward to them. They notice it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. It stands out to them, and I think everyone else will get the chance to see why, as you sort of play it piece by piece and go into normal Radio Free Mormon fashion of dissecting what's going on there.
Yeah, it really is remarkable.
Yeah.
And I expect that this scene that we will review has replicated itself at least 100 times.
Yeah. And so folks can tune in for that tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And so check that out. Yeah, great episode, by the way.
Can I bring up something about you? Thank you. Thank you very much. There was a crossing of paths this past Wednesday, I think it was. And suddenly there was a person who may or may not have been involved in your excommunication reaching out to contact you. Is that right?
Yeah. And I wish let's see here.
By that, I don't mean the High Council. I'm talking about further up the chain and gathering the evidence and sending it to the stake president.
Yeah. Let me pull up Facebook really quick and go to my profile really quick and grab those pictures, because I think this is a big deal. This happening. So let me present my screen. Share screen. All right. So that's that for goodness. So Poetic Kate says, fun fact, when I worked at the church headquarters, I was tasked with printing one of Bill Reel's Facebook posts. That was a picture of Jeffrey R. Holland with the words liars stamped across his forehead in red lettering and sending it to his stake president. I'm sorry, Bill. She says, sorry, it was this picture, actually. I printed it.
This is more than I've seen.
Oh, no, this was both of them. They were together.
Oh, I didn't see this part.
Yeah, so sorry. It was this picture, actually. I printed it in black and white, and my manager made me reprint it in color because he wanted the stake president to be extra aware of the red lettering and how blatant the messaging was. Laughing my ass off. And I'll just say, RFM, if the lies were blatant and we showed the receipts, and even if I was wrong on one of them or two of them, it means we caught Jeffrey R. Holland in at least 3 really significant deceptive answers to questions.
Yeah. And
it deserves this sort of strength of response. Like, hey, you're an apostle of the Lord and you have a habitual pattern of lying. That should mean something. Like, it deserves a big red stamp.
You are bringing the members of the SCMC, the Strengthening Church Members Committee, to repentance one by one, Bill.
Yeah.
Great is the worth of the souls of the members of the SCMC, and you proved it once again.
Yeah. Kind of like the time you gave out their phone number.
I figured, it's got to be a lonely job. They might want to hear from some people.
And they did. They heard from a lot. Their response had to change over the course of the day because the response was overwhelming.
Look, the guy this was Timothy J. Dykes, by the way, Dyches. He's a former 70. He's since been made emeritus. He's been retired. So he's no longer the head of the SCMC. But he was a very, very nice guy, but he was very concerned that I not be recording it. And I told him, I said, no, I'm not recording it. That would be a felony in my state. And I want to keep my bar license as long as I can. Thank you.
Yeah. And
he laughed, right? Because he's a lawyer. Now we're talking lawyer talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now we're communicating like 2 human beings, or as close to human beings as lawyers can get. And I said that, and then he says, what was it? He said that part, and then something about, whatever it was. Anyway, he's a nice guy. And the question I was driving toward is about this Poetic Kate. Was she there while Timothy J. Dykes was the boss? And did she have any interesting harassment complaints to file against him?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting question to ask. And the cool thing that's going to happen is that Kate's going to be on the show in 2 Wednesdays. And so we'll
Wow.
have her on, and we'll get the chance. RFM put this episode idea out there, and we reached out to her, and she's going to be on here in a couple of Wednesdays. So
Yeah, believe it or not, when I found out that this person who apparently worked in the SEMC or adjacent to the SEMC had reached out to Bill, I thought, why don't we get her on the show?
Yeah.
I thought that would be a great show. I thought everybody would want to hear about her experiences. Now, what she has said is she can't say everything.
Yeah.
She can't say everything, but it's been 5 years. And so she feels like there's enough distance to where she can say some things. And I think if we're especially nice and inviting and warm and welcoming, we can probably get her to say more than she intends.
Yeah. Well, I would just want her to answer what she wants to answer. So,
I mean, that's how I do it.
Yeah. Well, it is an opportunity to say what you want to say.
Yeah.
About your experience in a way that it can be understood by the rest of us, and we can now weigh our opinions of things based on information that we wouldn't normally have access to.
Yeah. It worked like a charm with Mark and Justin.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Here is Joe Walker. Do you mind if I bring him onto the show?
I do not mind if you bring Joe Walker on the show.
Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Bill. And
Excellent.
RFM.
Hi.
Excellent.
Is that your real accent, Joe?
That is my real accent. I am from the West Country of the UK, so down in the south.
Okay.
Well,
so what are you near?
southwest.
Are you near Wales?
So a little bit lower than Wales, so sort of southeast of Wales.
Okay.
Right on the south coast.
All right. Very good. Land's End, Penzance, all that.
Bit closer. You're getting closer. You're getting closer.
Are you on a boat right now? Is that where you are?
No, I'm almost. Actually, well, so you can't say almost on an island, but not. I'm from an island just off the coast of the UK. So.
Oh, very good.
Tiny, only about 5 miles long.
Wow. How many people live there?
About 12,000.
What's it called?
It's the Isle of Portland.
The Isle of Portland.
So yeah, it's that's where I'm from. I'm really doxing myself now, I suppose, but it doesn't really matter.
Well, there's 12,000 other people it could be.
But yeah, tiny little island. If you've ever seen the British Museum or Buckingham Palace or Whitehall Cenotaph, it's all made of stone from the island. That's so
what kind of stone?
Seen it. And the London Temple, of course, as well, is also made from it.
Is it really?
So yeah.
So this is highly prized stone on the Isle of Portland.
Oh yes, but that's not what we're here to talk about anyway.
Is it marble? It's not marble.
Limestone.
Limestone.
God, exciting topic, limestone.
Limestone. I believe that the in Austin, Texas, the entire Capitol building is built of limestone.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there are limestone quarries there, unless I'm misremembering it horribly. So it's it's a beautiful.
I only actually recently found out through Reddit, a random Reddit post, that the entire Capitol building in Washington D.C. was tiled with tiles that were shipped from England.
Really?
I thought that was mad. They got them over on boats without them all breaking and laid it in America, which is insane to me.
The amount of work, the amount of work that goes into something like that to make it go from one part of the process to the end result is insane.
It is.
And like hundreds of years ago when it was all sail ships and mad, crazy.
We gave you a lot of business, didn't we?
You certainly did. It's a good trade-off sending all of our village idiots over to America,
Well, they've risen quite high in some circus.
They have.
I almost said circuses. Hey, Joe.
Some could call it that. Some could call it that.
Joe, are you on the Isle of Portland right now?
No, so I've moved since onto the mainland, about 2 miles away. So yeah, I'm on the mainland now, a little town called Weymouth.
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 Sounds so romantic.
I like it.
How many people are in the town?
Similar again, around about 12,000. And the island and the mainland town hate each other. That's very typical of the UK. You'll find that everywhere. If you live near someone else, you don't like them.
If you're around them long enough.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, It's even worse than that. The people who live on top of the island and the bottom of the island also don't like each other. So that's how fractal it gets. There's levels of hate that go on in the UK culture. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about limestone and.
I'm not sure.
I
But,
don't know what we're talking
it's your
about.
time, pal.
Yeah, so I wanted to come on for a while, but being in the UK and it being 3 o'clock in the morning for us, so I do often listen back to episodes later, but I thought, I'm a shift worker, so I was up late tonight and I thought, you know what, I'm going to come on. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of get some flattery out of the way as well. I've loved you guys. I've been following you guys since I came out of the church. RFM, I love your jokes, even though they often go over Bill's head and my head as well, half the time.
It doesn't matter. His laugh is infectious anyway.
Exactly. He has got such an infectious
I've
laugh.
already done a couple of those tonight. Thank you very much.
Got a very rascally laugh, has RFM.
Yeah.
If it goes over everybody's head, it's a bomb.
But for the few of us who catch it, it's just gold.
Oh, thank you, Joe.
Keep it going. Bill, thank you for creating Mormon discussions. It was a big part of my sort of deprogramming. And yeah, it's been a great space, a great community to have after coming out of the church, because obviously the church isn't massive in the UK, but it forms a big part of your social circle if that's what where you're going every Sunday, and institute and seminary and youth programs. So to leave that was kind of a big thing, and having the community of ex-Mormons and fellow people who've gone through that was a really big thing for me. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. I'll just say, Joe, like the chance that we have to sort of connect. I mean, Mormonism is the reason why it's such a easy thing for you and I right here, right now, to connect as two human beings. And for all the shit it did to us, it also bonded us too, that we get the chance to sort of connect in a really deep way with people who have been on a similar journey.
Definitely. That's what I really liked. Actually, I was one thing, a bit of, is it criticism? I don't know. I'll go as far as criticism, but one thing I've really missed actually is Almost Awakened. I went back and absolutely binged that when I first discovered it. I didn't know it was a thing. I discovered it and went all the way back to episode 1 and listened to it all the way through the early episodes with Mikkel, and when Britt comes on, all the way through, and I absolutely love that. That was really, really helpful, because as much as the kind of deconstructing side, I think, is important and really valid to hear kind of reasonable arguments as to why, that is actually bullshit. The kind of spiritual side of it as well, the other side, and kind of reconstructing, which I think that Almost Awakened was really good for, was really helpful too.
Yeah, I'll just tell you a little thing. The Almost Awakened podcast isn't dead. I'm actually behind the scenes at present, having conversations with my girlfriend about various topics that I think will be really interesting to sort of formulate a conversation on. I'm in the middle of trying to get certified as a coach to deal with trauma, and she's a trauma coach. And so there are little things around like the psychology of trying to sit with why we feel the way we do and how we make decisions about life, that I think there's more episodes of that podcast yet to come. So stay tuned.
I eagerly look forward to that.
I love it.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Before I go,
yes,
that's
sir.
all right. My
Yeah.
topic of conversation was going to be, and I'll keep it brief because I know you want to move on. The church, obviously, the big news this week was that the church changed its Polygamy for Kids comic. And I thought that was interesting because I could see that coming. I could see they were going to change it, which goes to show that the real prophets in the LDS church are the ex-Mos and prog-Mos who. Yeah,
I was wrong because I said they would do it by Christmas.
No, we were way off. They were straight on that.
Joe, have you seen the response the church has given to that?
No, I've seen the updated version of the comic, but I haven't actually seen the response.
The church put out a response, and they are avoiding the crux of the issue. and it's staring them right in the face. And there's really no reasonable explanation for why you would dismiss it, dismiss the real reason. It speaks volumes about what you're unwilling to say about yourself.
Their explanation is very short, and it amounts to, we made it simpler because we made it simpler.
Yeah.
Good old circular reasoning.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know if they've realized the tacit admission that they've made, that by removing it, they are admitting that Joseph Smith's polygamy was grooming and was problematic.
Yeah.
By removing it, that's the kind of implications of
that's
it.
A good point.
It's why they answer the question with a road pointing right back to the answer that they're using. They're doing it like you said earlier. It's circular reasoning. Otherwise, you just answer the question. Answering the question can't happen. That's not the thing they can do. So they have to do something else. Because exactly what you said, it's so obvious. It's staring them right in the face.
Definitely. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. It's been great to talk to you, and I'll carry on listening from the quiet of my early morning here in the UK.
All right. Thank you.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Just for just one moment to sit here and think that here I am in my underground bunker and Washington State and talking with a guy who is over there in freaking England.
Yeah.
In real time. I'm sorry. I know this has been able to be done so since they invented, the radio, but still, it's amazing to me all the time. By the way, George gives a super chat, and I want to go back to this one first so we don't forget it. How do you bring it down?
I can do this. We've got so here's the first one.
How did you do that? You'll have to tell me later.
It's if you go to on the right-hand side, it was comments, but instead of having the live on, you click the starred. So right at the top there, if you click start, it'll just bring up the ones, and so it makes it easier to sort of sort through them.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Glad you asked, and glad
I
I was
feel like
able to
my
answer.
time here tonight has been beneficial to me.
Yeah. All right. So now
Destiny Salazar says time is a flat circle.
Yeah.
Some days it can seem that way. So Brian says, love your work, gents. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Brian. We will endeavor to do so.
Thank you very much.
And then there was this last one from George. Super chat saying, I'm a never Mormon, but I follow the two of you because I find Mormonism fascinating. Do Mormons consider being made a 70 or 12 an ontological change like bishops in Catholicism? So here's the deal. I was over here. If you notice my, me typing, it's because I had to look up what the hell ontological means.
Yeah, I was going to wait for you to tell me.
So it's the branch. It has to do with the study of existence. So is it like a different, separate kind of existence? I don't think so. And the deal with Mormons is we're much more lowbrow than the Catholics. Okay. Catholics go and they have a real seminary and they learn all these fancy words like ontological, and they don't have to look them up when somebody brings it up in conversation. They just know what it is and they can discourse intelligently about it. We've got nobody in our church who can do that. That's not part of the requirements. What we have in our church are businessmen. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what you have to be. You have to be a businessman to rise in the Mormon church, and a successful one. So it's a very different kind of thing. But taking your question on its own terms, no, I don't think so. I think it's not an ontological change. I think it's just seen as a continuum of moving up the priesthood patriarchal ladder.
I do think one thing that's additional is you get to a certain point, and I think you feel like you're seen by the people who lead the thing. And you get to the point of being a 70, for instance, whether it's a full-time 70 or an area 70, you get to the point where you actually get to sort of rub shoulders with the guys who are your leaders. And that has to be an amazing mechanism to pull people into loyalty and into belief in a thing, even if the beliefs are unreasonable or irrational.
Very good.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Destiny. We were just talking about her. She's down below.
Yeah.
There can't be two Destinies that spell their name that way on this show in one night.
No, not at all. I am the one and only Destiny.
Well, good to see you.
I have to say I'm a little starstruck because you guys have provided me so much joy And also I have to say the deconstruction of my faith, sometimes it's a difficult path. And to have fellows like you that will provide a soft landing along the way has been really meaningful to me. So I just want to say thank you. It's really been amazing.
Awesome. Awesome. And very much appreciated. It's sort of cool to sit back and have people find something you did useful. That feels good. And I know RFM, you and I have had conversations off there. We're just both deeply grateful. You can say your 2 cents, but deeply grateful for what the chance is for the content to have had an influence on somebody, that they got enough information that they were able to make easier decisions about how they wanted to live their life. So you're welcome.
It is a stressful time, isn't it?
It was. I feel like I've gone through that hurdle where I'm on the other side of it now, which feels great. But one of the things that I really appreciate about following people like yourselves and Mormonish and Mormon stories is there's a piece of it that still always remains with you.
Mm-hmm.
That you're always still kind of dealing with, reconciling with. That's a continuing crisis in the soul, that it's not necessarily bad, but it's useful to keep the fire going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it makes you more skeptical of things, and I think that makes you value the ability to think through moments and to challenge things. I think it slows you down and makes you more appreciative of the moments you're engaged that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, super cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you, fellas. You're the greatest. I love Mormonism After Dark. Great idea. I mean, why didn't you come up with it sooner? I mean, come on.
Well, this is what Mormonism Live was originally intended to be.
It's so much fun. So much fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful. What a great, great night this is. By the way, I've also got to tell you that, we just have a lack of structure here, which is very difficult for me to maintain because I've got 5 different things to talk about, of course, even with the lack of structure. What I like is having people call in like they're calling in.
Yeah.
We've got George of the Jungle following up his question with a super chat for what is the difference between a full-time 70 and an area 70? I think that a full-time 70 is a general authority. A general authority means they have authority anywhere in the church. In other words, their authority is general. An area 70 is still, who comes up with the names? I don't know. But basically, they're like a 70, except they're not a general authority because they only have authority within an area. And an area is, you got wards, you got stakes, you've got areas. And presidencies over them and area 70s over them. So it's all a way of, getting that middle management structure built up.
And also of note is that I believe full-time 70s are paid, and I don't think area 70s are. And so the moment you're a full-time 70, you enter to the sphere of being, paid for what you're doing.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that happens. That's where the cutoff line is, right?
Why he's in area 70 is because he lives in that area. And so he is still local. So he's not his expenses aren't being paid yet.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if he works hard, they will be eventually once he becomes a real general authority.
If he's true and faithful, that's true. So
we've got Barb here. Did you want to?
But we got a phone call that's sooner than that. So let me grab no worries.
Bill has all the information in front of him.
Yeah, we'll get to Barb here in just a second. But we'll
get to you in a second, Barb.
This is, and hopefully this
Bill
works.
Can see the phone calls. I can just see the people below who are coming in by computer.
Yeah.
By StreamYard.
Right.
Yeah. Hi. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. RFM, you can hear? Sweet.
Yeah. Hi, RFM. Hi, Bill. What's up?
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I just happened to catch the notification that the show was partway on. Thought I would just jump in and say I love your show. As a Christian minister who used to work in a cult, let's just say I really enjoy watching what you guys do. Let's just say some of the experiences you guys have talked about in your time as Mormons. Let's just say I had a few better. Well, let's just say a little more like what you guys went through than I want to admit.
Right.
Oh, yeah, your cult is bigger than our cult, huh? So let me ask you, what cult did you used to work in? And I didn't catch the name, Christian minister.
My name is Ken.
Ken?
It doesn't exist. It was a small group. It doesn't exist anymore. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to say.
Where did you bury the bodies?
Yeah, it was very small. It was, but what I was going to say is, I just wanted to ask you guys.
Yeah.
This is just something I wanted to ask you guys. Maybe you guys could give me a perspective on it. I mean, and I've heard you guys talk about how different people in Mormonism have different concepts of it. Like there are some who are, there are some people who are in the church who clearly don't really seem to believe much of, well, whatever nonsense there is. How do they justify staying in? I mean, if on some level maybe they admit to themselves, this is nonsense, why do I stay? Why do people
Can I ask you a question in response?
Yeah.
Why do you remain a Christian?
Because I believe in Jesus Christ.
Boom, baby.
Yeah.
You know, I can do this Jesus thing. He's always answering questions with questions. I think I've got this down now.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is there's something they hold on to that matters to them.
Yes, absolutely.
Mormonism.
I could not have put it better than you did just there.
You just nailed it. I was going to ask you the same. I was going to ask you the same question. I was going to ask you. You watch us from the outside. You see what we're doing. You see us deconstruct Mormonism, put the documents on the screen, walk the person right from the beginning to the end of the issue, ask the logical questions that can't be answered faithfully, and it still doesn't work with everyone. Some people, so why? Why does that not affect why is there a group of people that doesn't affect?
Well, it depends on the person, and also this is just my experience. Although I think people to some extent maybe believe what they want to, I think it's on a deeper sense. It tends to be they believe more what they feel they need to believe.
Yeah.
At least, and like I said, I don't think anybody is free of that completely. Trust me, I've made my share of blunders.
Yeah.
I admit that. I'm imperfect. I know.
Yeah, no one's giving up more.
It's a shock.
No one's giving up more ground than they have to.
Yeah, I mean, and and just the thing is, I mean, and I just want to make it clear, I don't hate Mormons as people. I actually know Mormons who are very good people, and I have friends who are Mormons. It's just my quarrel isn't generally with them. It's with the way the Latter-day Saints Church operates. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't.
Okay, Ken.
Say the LDS Church.
And hang on a second.
Yeah.
Ken, in what way? What is your biggest peeve against the way the LDS Church operates? Can you tell us?
Well, just they aren't honest about they just won't be honest and transparent about their own history. I mean, that's basically one of my biggest things is they just aren't honest about it. I'm a historian also, so that's one of my biggest peeves.
Have you published anything?
Does any of this? What?
Have you published anything?
No, not really. I've been meaning to write for a while, but I have family I have to take care of who have health problems. So, and family comes first,
Yeah. Well, thank you for the call. We'll talk about that here. We'll end the call and then talk offline here about that question. Okay.
Yes, Ken. Thank you for calling.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah. You have a good time.
Everything.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I feel like I'm a master teacher now. People talk about Jesus being the master teacher because he answers questions with questions and people come to insights because of it.
Yeah.
I'm there.
Yeah. That's just, listening to Brene Brown or, right. You get whatever message it is that is meaningful to you, then you're swayed to think that message is important. And he's right. Like there are people that are attached to their beliefs, but aren't we all attached to beliefs? And somebody once said that, everybody on this planet believes something that isn't true. And are you sure you're the only person who got it all right? Like you've got it all figured out? Well, no. But also, if 1,000 times the more reasonable answers on the other side, that also just means it almost certainly isn't true.
Probably. Now we're ready for Barb?
All right, Barb, here we go.
Hey, good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Are you at BYU in the library?
No, I am not at BYU. I actually live in Arizona.
Is
So
that your house?
this is my house.
Oh my gosh. That you have a
Yes.
beautiful house.
Thank you.
And there's
Thank
somebody
you.
in the background there.
Is there? Oh, that's my son getting a charger for my computer.
That's
So
a
it
mirror behind
doesn't.
you on the wall, isn't it?
It's a window.
Oh,
It's dark out.
okay.
It's a window.
All right. Very good.
So, okay. First of all, long time fans watching you guys, and I'm so grateful for all the work you've done in helping my deconstruction. But I wanted to get your opinion on. I'm actually getting my master's at Arizona State right now, and my thesis, I'm looking at kind of the erasure of the divine feminine, and so I wanted to get your opinion on why you think there is such this hush hush around Heavenly Mother, and why we can't know more about her. And yeah, I wanted to get your opinion and see. After studying, I kind of came up with the opinion that for most women, what eternity looks like is just a lot of labor and birth and labor and birth. And I think that if most women knew that, they probably wouldn't want that. So maybe we don't talk about it. Anyway, I wanted to kind of see what you guys thought.
Yeah, you're asking what stops the conversation.
Yeah, like why
are they so afraid?
What are they so afraid of?
Well, they're afraid of a lot of things, but they're also frozen in amber. Everything that the church believes has been frozen of doctrinal significance. Yeah, they've changed a few things over the years, but mainly it's all been frozen in amber as of the time, at least the last part of the 19th century, or the 1900s anyway. Excuse me, the 19th century, the 1800s. Okay, so it got frozen there mainly by B.H. Roberts and James Talmage. So it's all frozen in amber. And all I'm saying is this, is that there is an idea that there is a Heavenly Mother or mothers who are involved in creation. And it's tied up in this whole idea of the temple rite of sealing for eternity, and that becomes necessary to become gods and have eternal increase. But beyond that, what I'm saying is they haven't received any revelation about anything. I mean, how much do we know about the Father? Nothing. We don't know anything about him. And what we used to know, now we kind of ignore. So we don't know anything about him. If Joseph Smith were still alive, he was the guy who received revelation. If he were still alive, we would know everything about Heavenly Mother, including her home address and her measurements.
Yeah.
But why can we pray to Heavenly Father? But I know they recognize Heavenly Father and Jesus. But what's so bad about praying to a Heavenly Mother as well?
Yeah, they're afraid of something, and
I don't get that.
Yeah, well, it's called a patriarchy. When men run the system, and the old men at that, anyone else breaking up those lines, you've established lines of race that have just begun to start to blend. these men stop short of being inclusive of anyone that doesn't look like them. That's what patriarchies do.
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole church is built on this whole priesthood thing, and only men can hold the priesthood. And they find support for that in the New Testament, and the fact that God is represented as a male figure there, and Jesus obviously is a male figure there. So they find support for that, and they don't want anybody horning in on their action. They don't want any prayers going to a woman. Okay, they can go through Jesus, who's a guy, to a guy, and be answered by another guy who's the Holy Ghost, right? But women need not apply in that, because that would give them power in heaven. And as in heaven, so on earth. They want to keep women in subjugation, that they are never going to be general authorities. They will be officers. They'll be general officers of the church, but never a general authority in the church. Why? Because they can't have the authority. That's the priesthood.
And the amount of women's voices they're willing to put forward in order to quiet the dissent just enough that it can be tolerated is 1 or 2, 3 women at a general conference. And so you still see men that occupy, even in the prayers where the women can give them, you still see the men occupy 85, 95% of those.
Yeah.
They're not elevating women's voices. They've given women just enough times that they can participate, that they don't raise a voice loud enough.
Exactly. And just the fact that there's no role model. There's no role model for women to, to look to,
Right.
No.
That has been observed by others, and probably women who are Mormons, that their role model is to become invisible.
Yeah.
To the point where they change their voice to sound like the children. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so sad to me. It's just the more I think about it, the more how I was raised, that me and my husband would be, gods and goddesses of planets, and it all sounded so great. And then as I started thinking about it more, I thought, okay, so that means having children and a bunch of children and a bunch of children. So I'm just having children while he's ruling these worlds. And I thought maybe that's why they don't talk about it, because all I'm doing is being in the back having children. It sounds
We have
miserable.
to go to the office every day and bring home the bacon. You know how it is.
Yeah. Multiplying and replenishing the earth benefits the system. That was given to keep you loyal to it. Like, what are the things that happen when you let it control that narrative?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck with your paper. Dissertation?
Thank you. Thesis, master's thesis.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Good luck to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Be sure to spell my name right in the acknowledgement.
There you go.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
That was great.
Writing a master's thesis.
Yeah. What do you? Yeah. The thing used to hold lines that would allow even less female participation in some ways, but then also, if you go back, there were ways in which women could participate in the early church that they no longer can. And so even in the midst of maybe voices leaning more and more progressive, there's still ways in which the system takes one back. And if it gives one over here, it's often a trade-off.
So somebody must have thought of this idea before, of being gods in a Mormon sense. Of course, Mormons, you got multiple gods. Have that set as businessmen going to the office back in 1950s with the hat, and everything in the overcoat.
Yeah.
And they go to the office and they are gods every day, and they have to run the universe. And then they come home in the evening to the missus.
Yeah.
That should be good for about, I don't know, half a season before it gets canceled, but it could work.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan of salvation. That's how it works.
Mhm.
And you even get, I mean, you get leaders even in the modern moment. Elder Oaks, not too long ago, re-emphasizing with the way his speech was that women were eternal baby makers. That's their job through all the eternities. And women in Mormonism sort of, they want to get away from that, even on the believing side. And yet I think you just run into these things where it pushes and pulls, and it gives up some theology or doctrine, makes a change that's more accommodating, but then it sometimes takes one back somewhere else. Elder Holland speaking to the Maxwell Institute or to those at BYU, and emphasizing that they need to toe the line more stringently. And so that's one where he's taking one back from where it's at, changing the boundaries, rearranging the rules, making it more complicated for people to work around the system. Yeah, I mean, people try to stay in the church, keep their job, navigate their questions, and some of those people end up leaving, and they're in a place where they're a student at BYU. Losing your testimony should not mean that you lose your credits. So, unfortunately, those things happen.
Revelation alarm. I just got revelation.
Yes.
Ready for it?
Please.
This is what you get on Mormonism After Dark. You get fresh, hot revelation served to you weekly. Here's the deal. I figured out the problem with God. The problem with God isn't that he's lost in space. The problem is that he's lost in the 50s tonight.
Yeah. Even he will find his way out of the 50s, but by the time he does, everybody's already moved so far ahead again.
They
He's
don't have
always
all the
behind.
hippies protesting against him.
Yeah.
He's safer in the 50s. So I want to put this up from George.
Yeah.
George, we appreciate the questions and the donations. Men, sorry to be a pain in the arse tonight, but what is the position of the Mormon Church on individual members of the church leadership joining Freemasonry? Well, there used to be kind of this policy that if you were a Mormon and you joined a Mason, you became a Mason, you were like a traitor. And they felt the same way toward Mormons, because of course Mormonism kind of took more than they ought to have of the Freemasonic rituals and rites and signs and tokens and clasps and 5 points of fellowship and all these other things that they took without permission. So there was a lot of animus between the two groups. I think that's largely passed in the last few decades, and I don't think it's a big deal anymore. I can't speak specifically to leadership. Bill, you were a leader in the church. You were a bishop.
Yeah, that doesn't really count. It really is. When we talk leaders of the church, I'm always thinking not only the top 15, but those who make their livelihood off of this thing sort of being upheld. And because it becomes really difficult, to be able to do something about that. But I'll just say, with leaders joining Freemasonry, I've seen members of the church who have joined the Freemasons, and I've never felt like there was a rule out there that said it someone in the church couldn't. And so I can only imagine that there are, from time to time, at least members of the top 15 that have joined Freemasonry. And I think there's lots of issues between Masonry and Mormonism, and a Mormon leader being a Mason in the present day is probably the least of my worries.
You know what's nice? What's nice is that we have finally gotten out of the very, very long period of time in the Mormon church when we as a church denied that there was any Masonic influence on the LDS temple ritual.
Yeah.
That went on forever, and it was just ridiculous. And then there was this whole effort and this goes back quite a few decades, by the way. There was this whole effort to try and say that the Native Americans had the endowment, they have the clasp, they have the signs. In other words, it didn't come from the Masons next door, where Joseph Smith has his own Masonic temple and has basically everybody go through, become a Mason, right? It couldn't be that. No, it had to come through the Native Americans, from the Nephites, who obviously have the temple endowment from Jesus, even though it's not mentioned in the Book of Mormon. It must have been there, and then it must have been passed on. So that's where it came from, not from the Masons. It came from the Nephites. And interestingly, that is once again being resurrected by Chief Midiga. Yeah, Chief
Mm.
Midiga.
Mm.
And he's trying to say the same kind of thing. So these things go in cycles. And if there are people around who aren't paying attention, if there aren't people around, I don't know, who are as old as I am to remember it, or people who've read the books and know about it that way, then it looks like something new. And everybody rushes to it like it's just incredible and fascinating. I've never heard anything like this before. But if you have the historic perspective, you can just see this is just the next iteration of the same old idea.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can't, along the same lines, if you can't ask questions on one side, you got to be able to sort of put it on full display. I guess is my point. You have to be able to take Mormonism and show all of it. And both sides, what side is willing to show their work? Anyway, okay, so Gally Sinatra.
She did it her way.
Hi,
Hey,
how's it
how are
going?
you? Good. How are you?
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a never mow. You guys are just intensely interesting. That's why I watch. But I have a question for you. I've been wanting to ask you this for some time now. I got offended when I heard about Tim Ballard taking leading tours, even to leaders of the LDS Church, into New England and the Boston area and all, giving them Mormon history, how it goes with that.
Right.
Where does he get off making up history? And you two grew up, I mean, when you were little kids, you went to U.S. schools, right? You went to public schools. You
Yep.
had history. Did you have American history?
Yeah.
Didn't it ever strike you when you joined the church how the history didn't match? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing in our elementary schools. I worked in education for 28 years. There's nothing in our schools that teaches anything about Nephi or any, archaeology or anything that ever happened in the States. Didn't it ever strike you
nothing
that?
supports it.
I didn't join the church till right after I graduated from high school, so I was
Right.
spared that. And same with Bill.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
No, I think I understand.
You learned the correct history.
Yes. If we learned a more accurate, and by the way, they didn't tell the history accurate either. And so there is a part of you that's taught to believe
right.
George Washington and the cherry tree and
Yeah,
those kinds of
yes,
stories, because
yeah.
all histories being told have some variation of exaggerating or embellishing the truth, and
Right.
often the winners write the stories.
But there would be, Bill, there would have been a huge chunk missing.
Yeah. Why?
Huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get it. So the history we would have learned in school would have been a more serious attempt to get at the heart of it than the church telling its history. And how come we didn't pick up the difference?
Well, let me say this, okay, because I'm casting my mind back. And the fact is that there were things, not that I'm learning in school. Well, that happened. I mean, I went to community college as a member, after my mission, and regular college, undergrad and graduate.
You
So there
get
were
into world history at some point, you get versus
But
American.
even before my mission, this is like not DNA time, but it is blood type time.
Mhm.
And even then, this is 78, 79. There was information out that pretty much everybody understood that the Native Americans here came from over in Asia and across the Bering Strait, the last ice age around, 10,000 years ago, because of the blood type. Because of the blood type. And I remember looking at that and thinking, that is not what the Book of Mormon says. So science must be wrong here.
What
They must not know about the Book of Mormon.
What about dinosaurs? Because I'm sure you learned about dinosaurs, and I've seen quite a few ex-Mormons say live on YouTube that they didn't believe, they thought it was all made up, or they were younger than what scientists said. Because the Earth was only 3,000 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point you have to say, what the hell is going on here?
Well, the thing is, for a Mormon, what you do, I'm sorry, Bill, you go ahead.
No, it's okay. Please, your thought.
Well, if you're a Mormon, okay, 6,000 years, that's Doctrine and Covenants, section 77, but it's clearly symbolic, because the real answer is what it was a W.W. Phelps wrote down about Joseph Smith saying when he's looking through the Kirtland Egyptian papers, about how old this system of things has been going on. And I can't remember the number. It's a big, fat, hairy number, and it's like 6 billion or something. I can't remember. I'm sure someone out there in the live chat will remember.
Yeah.
Who is that person that said that? Who is he?
It's basically attributed to Joseph Smith.
Oh, okay. All right. I have one more question.
Yes.
Bill, you started to tell a story before, and you said that you had from the pawn shop, and you said you have some great stories from the pawn shop. I'm sorry, pawn shop.
Yeah.
I want to hear the stories from the pawn shop.
I stopped
Wait a
visiting
minute.
those. Yeah.
Wait a minute. I've had a couple of bowls. All right.
I think this
that's
is a Freudian
that's the
slip on your
problem.
part.
Yes, it is.
So, stories from the pawn shop. I don't know if I told the one about the saxophone. So the saxophone, somebody came in and did a loan on, no, it wasn't a saxophone, it was a trumpet. It ended up being a loan that we did for like $40, $50. The person didn't come back for it. So now we have to put it out for sale. And when we go through it, we discover what we didn't discover on the front end, which was paperwork and a signature on it, that it was signed by a person. I don't remember what the gentleman's name was, but he was the trombone player for Spike Jones and the City Slickers.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, you told me that.
And whoever this person was, their trombone player, I believe, if we were informed right, is the songwriter for "All I Got for Christmas Was My Two." All I got for Christmas was my two front teeth.
All I want.
Yeah. All I want for Christmas, my two front teeth. Yes. Sorry, I'm blowing it. And I'm trying to think offhand. Give me 2 seconds. It's my so the trombone from this guy. We ended up putting it on eBay, and there were two guys that just fought over it. They were intense. They wanted to figure out each one on one of the things. So it ended up selling for like $1,000. It was one of those transactions where you take something in, you have no idea what it's worth, and then when you go to put it out, it's worth a lot more money.
But you've
so
seen
that was
some
a cool
stuff.
Yeah. Original, from a Mormon connection, the first edition Book of Mormon, the second edition Book of Mormon, 1837 Kirtland. Seen lots of Mormon memorabilia come through. In terms of like items, World War II items are really a fascinating thing to have come through the shop. And if you've got World War II or World War I too, but World War II are a lot more common. The price on those was just phenomenal on eBay. So people would come in and would sell you a box of pocket knives or whatever, and you'd pay whatever, $10 for the box or something. And once in a while you'd find something in it that justified it. And often they were just knives you'd resell for $1 a piece or something. But once in a while you'd find something that made sort of the constantly dealing with the transaction to break even, only to grab the really expensive thing from time to time when it came to certain stuff. And knives was one of them that was always sort of cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you.
Have a great show.
How do I pronounce your name correctly? Your first name? Sinatra, I got.
It's Galley.
Galley?
Galley. Yeah.
All right. Nice
It's
to talk to Galley.
It's actually Galila, but Galley is short because nobody can.
Galila.
I'm tired of being called Galileo.
Yeah.
All right. Night, guys.
Okay. Take it easy.
That name reminds me of the old Groucho Marx line. Well, it's certainly been a gala day, and a gala day is enough for any man.
Okay. All right. So I've got another phone call here. I'm going to actually suspend them because we've got 3. So here's the first one, Robert, I believe. Robert, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Excellent.
Robert, can we hang on a second, Robert? Yertle the turtle from New Zealand is sitting in $10 New Zealand. Do you know how much that is in American, Bill?
I have no idea. I'm going to go with, what do you think? Is it higher or lower than 10?
You know, it used to be, I would have said unequivocally lower, but now I don't know.
Yeah.
It could be right on. Anyway, it's $10 there. So thank you, Yertle the turtle. That's a story my dad used to read to me when I was a kid. Another Nevermo question: is it possible to posthumously temple divorce to avoid afterlife polygamy? Hey, I don't know. I think that the resistance of the brethren to start adding that ordinance for the dead on top of all the other ordinances for the dead is signaled by Elder Oaks when he comes out there and says, quit bothering me about this. Just, it's going to be sorted out in the afterlife, and you won't be married to anybody you don't want to be married to, which is really good news for both my wives.
Yeah. I think for the person getting married, RFM, it's their desire for how they would like the situation to go that should be listened to. It shouldn't be some old guys not in the marriage in Salt Lake City who make the ultimate decision. It should be the person who was in that relationship who wants that thing to end. If there's some sort of contract that was signed, religious or secular, the person who entered the contract should have a right to end it, assuming the other party also wants to end it, or in certain situations like relationships, either side can end it without the other one being able to have a say, right?
Hey, Robert, is that you there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Robert, here's a question from George. I want you to answer this, okay?
Okay.
It says, can a member of the church with the Melchizedek priesthood grant absolution for confession of sins?
Well, that is a really good question. My understanding is only the bishop, stake president, or a member of the first presidency or the quorum of the 12 can.
Well, here's the technical
Only
answer,
one.
okay? Robert, the technical answer is no, they can't. Because in Mormonism, nobody has the power to give absolution for confession of sins. George is a Catholic, by the way, so he's using these terms in a certain way. But in Mormonism, Jesus forgives your sins, or God does it after he butchers his son. You know,
right?
He will get around.
Well,
He'll
you're
forgive your
right.
sins. And the bishop doesn't forgive your sins, but the bishop basically gives you the high sign and says, "Yeah, you're good."
Yeah.
So he doesn't
Basically,
forgive your sins, but
George,
he can tell when you're looking pretty pure.
yeah. And basically, George, it is nothing like confession in the Catholic Church, where you actually feel like your sins are absolved. It's basically a shame tactic in the church.
Yeah, in the Catholic Church, you could say some Hail Marys, maybe some Our Fathers. In the Mormon Church, you're going to be made kind of a spectacle of, because you don't get to participate in the communion like everybody else in the worship service, right? And everybody's looking around, seeing who's taking the sacrament, seeing who's not, who's been naughty, who's been nice, who confessed to the bishop, and you are singled out. Everybody knows.
Yeah, there's a price to pay.
Yeah, there's a podcast from XJW Panda who basically said that Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons are very similar in the shame process.
That seems reasonable. Yeah, I would sort of expect that.
The most important, I didn't grow up in the church, Robert, but one of the most important moments I had with my bishop as a young man, probably 18, maybe 19, was realizing that he didn't have any discernment and he didn't know what I'd been up to.
That kind of hit with me, but like my brother said, not so much my dad. I'm not going to go there with my dad. My brother just told me not too long ago, he said, when you were in your 20s, you were just blinded and enamored by the Mormon church. And then when you went through things and you started paying attention to, oddly, John DeLynn, URFM, and we, Bill, he said you started seeing exactly what you saw when you first left the Mormon church the first time. How many lies there are. Like you said, they're businessmen and lawyers, and they have no clue about how to do pastoral care. They don't know how to discern. They don't know anything about Christianity, but they want to teach on Christianity.
Yeah, the system's designed to do something else. It's not you're laying out what the expectation is that you have. That's a reasonable expectation. It's what it should look like. But it looks like something different than that. They're playing whatever the game is, it's a different game.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the Old Testament,
Yeah,
in the Old Testament, the Hebrews and many other nations conceived of God as a great warrior because they put supreme value on that. You have to be able to defend yourself and beat other tribes in order to survive in that climate. So, of course, that's what God is going to be. God generally reflects the values of the society multiplied like to infinity, right? Always the best, always the biggest. And in Mormonism, not unironically, God is pictured as the supreme businessman.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of the decisions that are made, RFM, I mean, you have a God who sort of picks and chooses who can stay and who can go, and how he makes those decisions. It's not the way healthy people make decisions, how God decides to include. And leaders sort of, I think leaders have a right to go, hey, you can't come here. We're in charge of this space. You can't come here. But they don't have a right to then tell their members, but you also can't go meet with them away from me, which is what it does, right? It wants to control the narrative. So it makes it clear that when you leave this this two-direction circle of trust, then you lose things from us. We're going to start punishing you. It starts to poison the well when it comes to reading outside information or talking to your critical friend or relative. It would like to be able to have the person's ear and you not have the person's ear. Yeah.
Kenny B says, thanks for the show, folks. Just thought I'd let you all know that your shows helped me find my way out of Christianity. Thank you so much, Kenny B. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
And here is Theodus J. Whoopi. He says, according to Google, 10 New Zealand dollars equal 572 USD. So my initial impression was correct, though. I'm surprised it's so much. I don't know how they're getting by there in New Zealand, but I guess taking, what is it, wheelbarrows full of cash to buy loaves of bread. Theodus Whoopi gives us $9.99 in order to add to it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That more than makes up.
Yeah, yeah. And then we've got Joe below. Joe, we'll get to you in just a second. So I'm going to go to Michelle.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, on the phone. Thank you, Robert. Have a great day.
Oh, Robert, bye-bye. Michelle, is that Michelle Stone?
No, it's not. Michelle, are you there?
Yes.
Hello,
Hi.
how are you?
Hi, Michelle.
Great. Hey, thanks you guys for everything that you do. It's really great to spend time listening and being part of the community. A couple things now, great calls that have been coming in.
Yeah.
And a couple things I wanted to say on the last caller. It was interesting to me as I'm kind of coming out of Mormonism and moving in towards maybe even atheism. I just find it interesting to hear another Christian person kind of come in and criticizing other forms of Christianity. So I kind of find that a bit interesting. And I'm finding myself as I go through my own deconstruction that there's a lot of things about religion that we all kind of need to overcome, is my belief. So I would just want to be careful about, Christian groups criticizing other Christian groups. But that wasn't really the reason I called in. I was really fascinated with some of the stuff that Paula called in on. And as I've continued through my deconstruction, this mother in heaven concept has been really intriguing to me as a feminist. And when I think about mother in heaven, I mean, let's just go with the fantasy that it's true for a minute.
Okay.
I've thought of a couple things for mother in heaven. One is if she's really this wonderful mother, all-knowing female, companion to God, or a lot of, I think, women in the church are kind of trying to reach out to this mother in heaven and bring this feminist piece in to reach out. And I think, okay, so you've got this God in heaven that's female who is either one choosing to be completely silent. Like, if she's all powerful just as much as God and she has just as much of a great relationship to us, our mother in heaven has completely decided to become silent. She doesn't reach out. She doesn't speak to us. She doesn't interact.
It's the other
she doesn't
answer.
Build a relationship.
No, it's the other answer. I'll take the door number 2, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think
She's
I
not
think
allowed.
the door number 2 is,
Yeah.
well, okay, so let's take the door number 2. She's not allowed.
Yeah.
As a feminist, why in the world would I want a relationship with a God female in heaven who doesn't have the ability to overcome the abuse and the victimization of a God? Why in the world would I even want to relate to that?
Yeah.
So when I think about all of us, the feminist Mormons, the women that are feminists who are trying to like have this relation with Mother in Heaven, ladies, why do you want a relationship with a woman like this? This is not a mentor. This is not a woman. I mean, she's either choosing to not have any contact or she's a victim to the patriarchy that we all are trying to overcome. This is not somebody that I want in my life. I look at the proclamation of the family. It talks all about the importance of women, but Mother in Heaven is totally non-existent. This is not a woman who is good for our daughters and the women of this world to follow. One that either door number 1, she wants nothing to do with us, or door number 2, she is so subservient and patriarchy of God is so strong that she's locked in the closet silent. And for me, it comes down to, it's because it's a bunch of bullshit. This is a fantasy story. It's a great story. I think Mormonisms have the best fantasy story that exists out there. I wished it was true. I wanted it to be true. And man, there's some good freaking stuff in that. But when you come down to the reality of what was being taught and is still being taught, it's just bullshit. Like any other religion. And I know that a lot of people are still in that. My deconstruction's taking me to a place of atheism, right or wrong. I'm still learning a lot about what I think and believe. But anyway,
you're uncertain, but you're uncertain. You're a skeptic now. You recognize even the things you believe might not be true.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the right side of things to be on.
Well, thanks,
Isn't
guys.
it much better if we're going to embrace Mormonism then to embrace it as a myth instead of a representation of cosmic reality?
Yeah, but in a myth RFM, these men at the top lose their authority. They're the ones that have to keep the myth literal. If it becomes a myth, they're no longer paid this much to do these things.
They're the ones who put Heavenly Mother in the closet. And the only time they let her out is when they want to prove that Heavenly Father isn't gay.
Yeah. And that's the only time they use him. Yeah. Use her. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, caller.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Have a great time.
George is back at it. I mean, my gosh, did this guy not take a vow of poverty? We appreciate it, George. Now he's going to RFM. Did you notice any infiltration or influence of Freemasonry in the ceremony of your second anointing? If you're trying to be funny, you've succeeded. If you're not trying to be funny, I'll explain to you, okay? I can't say a lot about the second anointing, but strangely, even though there's a lot of Masonic influence in the temple endowment, in the second anointing, which is the higher ordinance, basically it's gone. There is no influence. Instead, it's based upon the New Testament and specifically the story of the washing and anointing of Jesus's feet by Mary. Okay, that's what it's based on. So other than that, I can't tell you anything else, but thank you so much for the question.
Yeah, you're giving the answer that the church would have given, and you didn't give the answer you're not allowed to give because you promised not to reveal those things. That was really good. You handled that so well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I try to observe my covenants. I'm a covenant keeper.
Yeah. Okay, it looks like we've got a Joe down below.
It's like I'm a girl watcher. I'm a covenant keeper.
Yeah, covenant keeper.
You know that song? Do you?
Girl watcher, I think.
I'm a girl watcher?
Yeah,
That's
I think so. Yeah.
Quote of the episode, it comes down to it's because it's a bunch of bullshit. Says Yertle the Turtle. New Zealand. What was it, like $5.54 in American? Thank you, Yertle the Turtle. Who said that? Was that you? Was that a guest?
I don't remember.
Well, then it was me.
Okay, you take the credit.
I didn't.
Sounds great. Once you see the games it plays, the episode Indiscernible from a Fraud, once you see that they walk it back only as far as they need to so that they can still posit that there's a chance. As long as they can get there, the apologists can do the rest. They can take it across the goal line. They just have to get it that close.
Very good.
All right,
Trevor
Joe.
Larson pushing the envelope as usual.
Okay, it's just like a fourth grader laughing. All right, Joe,
I don't
what's on
see
your
anything
mind?
about the third anointing. That not
Hey
even
guys,
one
great
word.
show tonight again.
Yeah. I think
Loving
we're
it.
finding our
Anyway,
groove. Yeah.
yeah, great calls too. I was having a conversation. I'm on the East Coast, so it's a little late here, but I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who practices emergency medicine in Utah Valley, and we were having this conversation. It came up because my parents work in one of the temples over there, very active, all that stuff. And we were just having this conversation about how many times the paramedics get called to the temple to rush in and save someone that's having some terrible like medical thing. And my buddy and I were laughing just because it's like, does no one say the joke out loud about just like the fact that like, where's the priesthood here, guys? Like apparently priesthood power only works after a patient's been stabilized, admitted, maybe preoperatively a blessing or something like that. But it
And it's
just
best
doesn't
that they're
seem.
partially recovered.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
If they're on that healing trend, that's the best time. You want to keep them on the upswing.
Or are healed from mundane things that would have gotten better anyway. You know how many people who have gotten
Yes.
there's this they got healed by an earache. They had a headache go away. They the common cold only lasted 4 days instead of whatever they thought it was supposed to last. It isn't supernatural. There isn't some special answer that's above and beyond what the rational mind can see. You simply open up the health statistics of any state and compare them to Mormonism and the effect it has within Utah, and you see that it has no effect.
Yeah, of course.
Utah's better in some things and worse than others, and having the sacred priesthood and anointing with special oil doesn't make any difference.
And anyway, getting basically where the conversation went to that I thought was fascinating was that he often will witness, he's a closeted non-believer. I don't know what the acronym is for that, but he'll
PMO?
frequently witness, PMO. But he's under the radar. But he frequently witnesses, blessings once the patients come in, and he was telling me about him. He said, and he was telling me this as funny. He's like, it feels like these blessings get more and more vague and less specific.
The further away from it we get, the more vague it gets too. Yeah.
It's
And
the
I
art
don't know,
form
Bill-
of the inconsequential blessing. That's what I call it.
And I was wondering if you guys noticed that in your representing kind of different phases of your lives in the church. Do you feel like those blessings, did you hear more specific blessings earlier on in your, when maybe the church was even allowing less, when people were more black and white and maybe even more dogmatic back in the day, and as like my believing family members are all theologically liberalizing, and all of the prayers and the blessings, they're all becoming highly non-specific, very, and the dilution of the dogma is fascinating to watch.
It's very important to phrase your blessing in such a way as to put it entirely in God's hands, which makes the giving of the blessing completely superfluous.
Right.
Yeah. It's a less obvious form of obfuscation. You're blurring things. You're watering it down. You're making it harder to see the contradiction because now people have to go look another layer away from where they should have to. You're making it difficult for people to figure it out. It's an obfuscation, but it's a more well hidden obfuscation.
And stating the obvious, which I'm known to do from time to time, but it's good to rehearse this. This must never be forgotten, that this is why the terrible success rate, in fact, it's non-existent, the success rate, it's flatlined, of priesthood power to heal people, is why it is that Elder Bednar, in 2013, at an address he gave in UTEP, University of Texas at El Paso, I believe it was, which was reiterated by being quoted in General Conference by a lesser luminary. Anyway, it's in the record, so it's scripture, is that it is important. What is most important is not that we have faith to be healed. but repeat it with me, folks, that we have faith not to be healed.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well,
I mean, if you didn't know anything else about the church, except you got a leader at the church saying that kind of drivel, you can basically reconstruct the entire backstory correctly.
Well, I appreciate you guys. And if at any point you can get one of the healthcare providers from Provo to come on Mormonism After Dark, they could tell you some of the most amazing ER stories that would just be chef's kiss. Not that they would
but I
do
can
it,
find
but
those in Ohio and Cincinnati, and I can find those in Dallas, Texas. I mean, it's not particular to there.
no, but they tell me some stories that are so awesome in the Mormon context with Mormon dogma and Mormon ritual that would just, you would love them. Anyway, great show, guys. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Well, you know, I had really one dog in my life as a boy.
Yeah.
And I love that dog, and I had it for several years, and my best friend and everything. And I'll tell this story sometime. I think I've told some of it elsewhere, but the bottom line is he got injured badly, took him to the vet. Must have been the summer of 79. I think it must have been. And took him down there, and me and my friend went down later, gave him a blessing, right? Was operated on, wasn't doing so good, on a respirator, very late at night, gave him a blessing. That's why it had to have been summer of 79, because I had the priesthood at the time and could give a blessing to a dog along with my friend. And no, he died.
Yeah.
He died, and I was very, very sad.
Yeah, it's too bad that it doesn't work, because it would be really great if it worked once in a while.
Yeah.
That'd be a really cool thing.
Yeah.
It would be cool if you could look at Utah and go, yeah, it's pretty demonstrable. Wherever Mormonism has a significant effect, the health data for that state is better because those people have access to something supernatural, and they don't.
Yes. And by the way, I feel like I have to hasten to explain that I'm not trying to compare this to anybody else, because obviously there are people who were blessed people, not dogs, you know, children, and all sorts of things that should have been. If there's a priority list, if you can't get to everything, God, if you can't honor every blessing that's done in the name of your son and your holy priesthood, maybe if you had a priority list that could put little kids at the top, okay?
Yeah.
You could work your way down from there.
Yeah, let's keep them from getting hurt.
It's just a suggestion. See, once again, I know that God's ways are higher than our ways, and God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts. But if I can come up with a better idea than God's, I think we got a problem.
He at least has an obligation to explain his logic so that you can be convinced. If you think other things are the more reasonable, rational answer, then your brain can only believe what you can believe. If I told you to believe in unicorns and leprechauns, you would go, I can't do that. I know those aren't real.
Well, in some ways, in many ways, what you just said about God owes it to us to explain himself is what the entire message of the book of Job is about, which is one of the classics of world literature, because it tries to deal with that. And ultimately, at the end, the answer is basically, I'm God and you're Job, so sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
That's really what the moral is in Job.
Yeah. And who's blessed by that message? It's the people who run the thing.
Yes. Yeah. Of course, there are no churches in Job. But yes, of course. That God always has to have his lollipop guild or his lullaby league in order to represent him, which of course is from the same movie / story as the classic representation, which is the Wizard of Oz, who is the prophet in Oz. Well, hang on. The Wizard of Oz is the great illusion, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's someone who speaks for him, right? Okay. Someone else speaks for him, or someone manipulates him to say the things that that person wants to say, the man behind the curtain.
He holds the keys.
Yeah. And so I have no idea how any Mormon watches the Wizard of Oz, either the old one or the new one, you know, with Wicked, which is fantastic, without having severe cognitive dissonance or thinking, wow, this seems strangely familiar.
Yeah. Those are the subtle messages that seem to have an effect on us and wake us up when numbers and sentences didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got like 5 minutes. You want to just talk a little bit about debates?
Yeah, let's do that because there's no more callers because I ended the phone lines. Nobody else is down below in the studio. We're at 9:29 my time. I don't know if you're showing it's quite that late. So let's spend a
Oh,
moment
it's
talking
because we
about this.
started late.
Yeah. Let's
I'm
keep
looking
going.
up at the amount of time that's
Oh, I
gone
got you.
by.
No worries.
I
Oh,
don't
yeah, I
want to
see.
shortchange our faithful followers.
Yeah, no, we don't want to do that. So keep on going. Let's talk about this
Is this you?
21 day. No, you were saying something about the Book of Mormon challenge.
Oh, did you? No, well, this is something else. So there's so many things that I have prepared, but the phone calls were so great tonight. This is when it's a success, I think, is when I don't have to go to anything that I have prepared.
Yeah.
Or maybe just a couple things, right? Because this show is not about me. It's about you. And if you're going to call in and if you're going to StreamYard in, right? We want it to be about you on Friday nights. That's the whole theme of Mormonism After Dark. It's kind of like when I used to teach Sunday school.
Yeah.
Taught gospel doctrine, 2006 to 2010. And went through the entire standard works with, gospel doctrine as the adult Sunday school class. Anyway, I did all of that stuff. And as I did it, I came to the point where I realized I would spend 8 to 10 hours a week preparing for class. I would start the Sunday evening after Sunday school to prepare for the next class. I love this job. I learned so much doing it. This is when I started opening myself to other sources, non-Mormon sources of scholarship, especially about the Old Testament and the New Testament. A whole new world open there. But what I made it, in spite of the fact I would prepare overly, and I had enough to fill 3 hours, I would go in there and start talking. And if anybody had a question or an issue that they wanted to talk about, that became the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because I used to, in my earlier days, it was a race. It was like, go, and I've got to go and get through all this material. And if people raise their hands, and they have to be brushed off as quickly as possible, right? Because I've got a goal to get to. But I realized with time that really this was about everybody else who was there. And if it was important enough for them to raise their hand and ask a question or something, then it's important enough for the class to go there. Because the class exists for them, right? Not for me. I finally realized that.
Yeah. Yeah, questions should be allowed, right? And so on this small level, you sort of came to the realization that it's feeding that energy of someone getting to ask a question and having an answer and being walked through ideas so that they can make new connections. That really should be what teaching them is about. And yet the manual wants you to cover certain ground. It wants you to stay away from certain things, and it wants you to emphasize certain things, and it just ignores certain things.
But back to the debate thing. Now that we've got no time, this thought came to me today. There has been so much jockeying around about debates, and having discussions. Is it going to be a discussion or is it going to be a debate? Well, I will only do a debate. I won't do a discussion.
Yeah.
And it's just everywhere. And
I'm guilty of it, obviously. I mean, that's obviously something that I
wasn't thinking of you. I was about to say I've contributed to it myself, and you said you're guilty of it.
I'm guilty of it. I have my reasons for it. I just don't think it gets me to a place where they'll actually get pinned to a corner and realize that their logic doesn't work. That's not how to debate. Debate allows both sides to continue to push the answers that they're good at.
Oh, you're talking about the debate format as opposed to the conversation format, which you're the master of, by the way.
I don't like the debate format, and people want there to be time limits, and you get one rebuttal and it's only this long, and people can keep to the answers they're good at, and it ignores the whole thing. You don't get anywhere.
Right. But then again, the idea came to me, why don't we talk about these things more across the aisle?
Yeah.
And why should it be so built up and so difficult to get together and talk? It's not like I can lose a debate. My position is I'm trying to get to the truth. So it's hard to lose a debate when that's your position.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I think there's a lot of problems between Mormonism writ large and what Mormonism claims for itself. I think there's like a Marianas Trench divide between the two. And I think it's easy to see and easy to point out. But really, can I just tell you one thing? This reminds me of a story about this attorney. He since passed quite some time ago, but he was important to me in my development. And his name was Gary Gayer, and he was the head of the public defender's office over here. So this is back around 1998, 1997. But what he told me was this. No, it was after 1990. I'd gone into private practice as a defense attorney. So maybe it's around 25 years ago. And I'm talking to Gary and talking about how I'm always nervous or antsy whenever I'm arguing something in front of a judge. You know, you do a motion, the other side files their response, you're going to argue it in front of a judge. And what he told me was, he says, yeah, I used to be that way too. I said, well, you're not anymore? No. How come? He says, because now, instead of worrying about convincing the judge, I don't worry about that at all. All I worry about is presenting my argument in the best way I can.
Yeah, that's where the focus has to be. And you made a great point, which is if, let's say, Jacob Hansen, we'll take him as an example. If him and I sit down, or you and he sit down in a conversation that the goal is the truth, then when somebody takes a really big position, that position should be allowed to be asked questions to see if its structure has integrity. Mm-hmm. And there's certain kind of questions that aren't allowed, and they're the ones that get to the integrity of the structure. The other questions you're free to ask. Let's focus on those questions. You don't get to ask the ones that show that the structure doesn't hold up.
Yeah, and I don't get, sometimes people want to limit the conversation or limit the questions. I say any question's fine. Any subject's fine. Mm-hmm. As long as it's relevant. I mean, there has to be some kind of issue that's being discussed, right?
Yeah.
It can't just be Mormonism. And we're going to talk about it.
Has to be a specific issue.
It has to be a little bit more specific, but within that issue, you know, nothing should be off limits, I wouldn't think. That's relevant.
Yeah. And to have a conversation that's in depth where you both get to be understood, just one issue alone will take you 2 hours just to begin to approach it. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't zone in on something really specific, then you'll never get to the end of the path of questions. You sort of have to get there where somebody gets a little stuck and they now have to sort of tread out into unknown territory for a moment.
And the whole thing is this. If you're trying to find out what's going on and exploring legitimately to find out, not to arrive at your predetermined conclusion, that's the most exciting point.
Yeah.
That's excitement. Now we're in a place where I don't know. I'm going to discover something. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to discover something. Supreme excitement. If you are defending a position, though, that's the moment of extreme fright, total fright, because you don't know where you are anymore and you don't have any footing, and you've got to get yourself back to your firm footing as fast as possible. So you've got to discount and ignore and push that learning opportunity away.
Yeah, you avoid certain things, don't you? And you take on certain things, and we're all sort of stopping shy of really getting to the heart of it. There's little games I think all of us are playing in our minds. And so to come to a conversation and go, I really want to understand why you think whatever it is, the 1832 account of the first vision limits God in ways that are unreasonable to make allowances for, right? And then the other side can argue the other counterpoint. And the goal is to get to the truth, like you say.
This is something that is so important, by the way, and we'll go a little bit long here. I apologize, Bill. But this is so important that when you are talking about something, it really does need to be that narrowly construed or close to that narrowly construed, because only then do you have a chance at arriving at something of significance to you personally and understanding and growth and exploration.
Yeah.
What happens in the church, I think, is the opposite. And what it is you're given 15 minutes, which is not a long period of time. And then you will be given the most generic subject imaginable: faith, repentance, service. And only 15 minutes, which means that every time you talk about it, it's true in the ward level, stake level, at the general conference level. All you're going to be able to do is say the very surface level things about the subject before you're done, the things that everybody's heard a million times, and the things that will lead to absolutely no new understanding on the part of anybody listening.
Right. Right. That's the game that gets played by being so general. You never, and by the way, the area, the territory is so general that you also get to pick the places where you do want to focus. And you've done these ones before. They work for you. You know that you can walk them in circles on this topic. It's where the real questions are. Those are the chapters we skip over when it comes to gospel doctrine. Those are not the things we're to discuss in a sacrament meeting.
This is why I once said, maybe I wrote it down somewhere, that when it comes to our study of the scriptures in Mormonism, I'm sure it's true in other churches too, but our study of the scriptures and history in Mormonism, too often what we do in class, if we are reading at all, and most people don't even do the reading, okay?
Yeah.
But if we are doing the reading at all, too often what we're doing is we're just skimming over the surface and looking over the side of the boat. And when we do that over the water, when we're moving slow and it's still out, all we see is ourselves looking back at us. All we see in the scriptures is us when we do it at a surface level. We actually have to stop.
That's deep.
And got to jump in and dive down. And then you won't just see yourself. Then maybe you'll find something that you couldn't see from the boat.
Yeah. So many people leave that maybe it's reasonable that these things don't add up. And if you're sure they add up, maybe with a little humility ask if just possibly it doesn't add up.
I just realized I was advocating for not staying in the boat.
Yeah, get out.
If you stay in the boat, you'll never learn anything.
You certainly won't learn to swim.
So who wants you to stay in the boat? That's the question you should ask next.
Yeah. Who gets paid if you stay in the boat? Yeah.
Well, there you go. Hey, I think we finally got to something fruitful in addition to all those wonderful phone calls we had.
Yeah. I thought it was a great conversation tonight, RFM, and I was really thrilled with all the directions it took, and the phone calls and in-studio guests were a giant part of that.
Yeah. I don't know what it looks like, but I just want to make myself more open to talk with other people. I know Austin Fife has been champing at the bit to come on the show and talk with me. He hasn't been, but he can come on anytime he wants. I'm happy to talk with him anytime, any place, pretty much anybody. Yeah. I mean, let's talk more. And I want to commit myself to not jockeying, not saying rude things like, fuck you, Jacob Hansen. Everybody loves that. It's like my tagline now.
Yeah. It should be on a loop somewhere. It should play on a loop somewhere.
I think it is somewhere in the celestial kingdom.
One of you guys should just create a YouTube video that just plays it over and over and over again for like 30 hours. And let's just see how many people for just a little bit play that thing, and it'll have hundreds and maybe thousands of views. That would give me a little chuckle.
I could say I regret having said it.
Okay, well.
But then
I'd
be lying.
Yeah.
I'd be lying.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy. Well, RFM, we're at it, 9:42 in the evening. Folks, thanks so much for joining us here at Mormonism After Dark. Thanks for the super chats. Really very much appreciate that. It's a fun show to do, and I really love the directions it went tonight. And RFM, thanks so much for all you bring. You make such a fun conversational partner.
Thank you so much. And I feel the same way about you too, Bill. And once again, this is our whole idea, our concept, which is we would have phone calls together, and we still do, and we talk about things. And one idea will lead to another, and it's a back and forth thing, you know?
Yeah.
And we thought years and years ago, we thought people might be interested in if they could like listen to this conversation to both sides.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we do. But it's modified now because of technology. You can drive the conversation instead of just listening into us. Paul H. Dumb says, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Fuck you, Jacob Hansen. Very good. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. One of my favorite quotes from Hamlet.
It's a great one.
It's actually in there. Act 3, Scene 2. Fuck you, Jacob Hansen.
It's a great one.
It's hard to believe, but Shakespeare, he knew.
He was amazing.
Yes.
I felt the spirit when you said that.
Very good.
Have a great.
Everybody will feel the spirit as we pick ourselves up and head for the finish line here.
That's right. Have a great night, everybody. What's that?
Would you like me to finish this, or did I interrupt you finishing it?
It doesn't matter to me. You go ahead.
Okay, everybody. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Please look tomorrow evening, 8:00 p.m. Mountain Time, for was it Jen Camp digging up dirt on John DeLynn?
Yeah.
It'll be 30 minutes. You're going to enjoy it tremendously. Monday night is the newscast at 6:00 p.m. You know, we should try and get like the same time maybe for all of these things. I don't know. But the 6:00 p.m. Mountain Time, that's tomorrow night. 6:00 p.m. Mountain Time on Monday is the newscast. And then Mormonism Live at 6:20 p.m. Mountain Time. And all this is harder for me because I'm in a different time zone. So I have to keep that in my head too.
It's tough work, but he's managing, folks.
Digging dirt on John DeLynn. There it was. It reminds me of a commercial that was on the air when I was a kid. It was called You've Come a Long Way, Baby.
Yeah, a long, long way. All right. Well, thanks, RFM. What a great night and great conversation. Thank you, everybody. And we'll take off. See you next Friday at 8 p.m. Otherwise, we'll catch you at our other shows. Goodbye.